Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to get into our quarterbacks and kickers in this video. We're going to cover 24 quarterbacks for you 2 QB and Superflex leaguers and go over the top 12 kickers so that we can be fully prepared to dominate our opponents this weekend. If you have any start-sit questions, please drop those down below. I would love to get back to you and help you out. If you are new to the channel or if you haven't got to it yet, please like and subscribe and help me out on my road to 100 subs. I greatly appreciate your support. With all that out of the way, let's get into Week 9's quarterback rankings. At the top of the list, and deservedly so, we have Josh Allen on the road against Jacksonville. Last week, Miami was able to keep it fairly close, but that certainly did not matter to Allen, who finished as the QB1 overall for the second time in a row. Now he gets Jacksonville? Yeah, let's make it a three-peat. Wonder Boy Matthew Stafford is next at home against Tennessee. The Titans allow over 20 points a game to signal callers, and Stafford has been a top 6 quarterback in his last 3 games. This offense is a well-oiled machine at this point with everybody involved. Now that Bobby Trees is humming, in addition to the elite emergence of Cooper Kupp, defenses are in trouble. Aaron Rodgers is number 3 and he rounds that out. He gets the Kansas City Chiefs on the road. These are the games that Rodgers lives for, and despite his poor stats last week, he was masterful without his top 3 wideouts. This week he gets back Davante Adams, so look for a monster game from both those guys. We move on to Lamar Jackson at home against my Vikings. Now, if Cooper Rush can throw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns against this defense, Lamar Jackson certainly can as well. He'll probably add another 50 on the ground just for good measure as the Ravens come out of their bye hungry. In at 5, we have Dak Prescott at home against Denver. While the Broncos are second in the NFL stopping quarterbacks so far this season, Dak has to be itching to come back after he sat out last Sunday night. I think that he has a big week versus the Broncos, and it definitely doesn't hurt that Von Miller is gone as well. Tumbling out of the top 5 is Patrick Mahomes at home against Green Bay. Didn't think that I would say that very often. I am not sure what is wrong with Mahomes exactly, but he doesn't have a top 5 finish since week 4, so he is undeserving of anything higher than this. After getting smoked by Tennessee and scraping by a horrible Giants team on Monday night, maybe he shows up in a critical game against an elite Packers team. Or maybe he focuses on doing another commercial instead. Jumbo Joe Burrow is number 7 at home against the Browns. Burrow has been able to finish as a top 10 quarterback in the last 3 weeks, and the Browns are allowing 21 points a game to quarterbacks, so they are certainly not going to slow him. The Bengals embarrassed themselves last week against the Jets. I think they bounce back here, and Joe does not let that happen again. Next up is Kyler Murray on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. There is a slight concern here with Murray's ankle, but not enough for me to push him outside of the top 10. Arizona is going to respond after a miserable showing and an embarrassing finish against the Packers. We move on to number 9, and it is Justin Herbert going on the road to face the Eagles. Herbert has shown some inconsistency against elite competition so far this year, and the Eagles allow the 7th fewest points to passers. However, the Chargers need a win in the worst way, and I think that Herbert rises to the occasion and gets right this week. The final player in our top 10 is Jalen Hurts against those Chargers. Hurts' streak of consecutive games with a top 10 QB finish finally ended last week, as the Eagles did not have to air it out much at all against that Lions D. That is not going to be the case this week, as the Chargers are going to put up points and the Eagles are going to have to try to keep up. At 11, we have Derek Carr on the road against the Giants. This is a decent matchup for Carr, who has finally gotten back on track after sputtering through weeks 4 and 5. With an extra week of prep to get ready for this game, I think that the Raiders come out firing on all cylinders. Flying all the way up to a QB1 for us this week is Tua Tagovailoa at home against the Texans. Tua continues to put up solid numbers despite the dumpster fire that is around him, which is impressive considering the many distractions that he's having to face every week. Miami needs to stick with him and give him better chances at success, and he's going to show that this week against Houston. Unlucky number 13 this week is Captain Kirk Cousins on the road against the Ravens. Now I apologize, guys, I should have seen this bust coming, but no one allows more points to quarterbacks over the past 2 weeks than the Ravens do. And it's not prime time, so even he can't screw this up, right? We move on to 14, and it is Daniel Jones at home against Vegas. Jones has to be feeling good after beating Carolina and then almost pulling the upset against the Chiefs on Monday night. With the Raiders allowing 23.5 points per game to quarterbacks over the last 2, he should be able to keep it rolling. At 15, we have Carson Wentz, and he gets the Jets at home. Despite the turnovers last week, Wentz made it 4 straight finishes in the top 14. The Jets have allowed over 22 points a game to quarterbacks in the last 2 weeks, so this connection with Michael Pittman will continue to improve. We then move to 16, and it is Ryan Tannehill on the road against the Rams. Now, without Derrick Henry, the Titans are certainly going to have to go more pass heavy, especially against a rolling Rams team. If Julio Jones can't get back this week, though, he is going to drop in our rankings before we hit Sunday. After him, at 17, it is Teddy Bridgewater on the road against the Cowboys. And after 3 straight finishes in the top 17, Teddy finally struggled a little bit against Washington. At least he was able to avoid the turnover bug, though. Denver has to score to keep up with Dallas, and Jerry Jeudy's emergence back to that 100% form should help him a ton. At 18, we have Tyrod Taylor on the road against the Dolphins. He is finally set to return after getting banged up all the way back in week 2. He gets a top 10 matchup waiting for him, and he looked good prior to his injury. He is a solid bye-week fill-in. We move on to number 19, and that is Taysom Hill versus Atlanta at home. Hill should return from his week 5 concussion, and Atlanta is allowing almost 27 points a game to passers. While he may not have to do a lot through the air, Alvin Kamara's screens and his rushing ability give him some upside. We then move on to number 20, and that is Matt Ryan on the road against New Orleans. This offense without Calvin Ridley certainly gives me pause, and the Saints are riding high after a dominant win over Tampa. His playmakers are going to have to step up. Next up is Mac Jones at 21 on the road against the Panthers. The Patriots are going to have to throw it against a stout Carolina front, so the volume will likely be there. With 4 touchdowns and just a single pick in his last 3 games, Jones will produce. We move to Mike White at Indianapolis, and he is our 22nd ranked player. This isn't about chasing the points, it is about a top 10 matchup. White was electric in the upset of the Bengals last week, and after throwing a pair of picks early, he settled in and finished with 405 yards and 3 touchdowns. At 23, it's Jimmy Garoppolo at home against the Cardinals. He is fighting for his job, and he threw for 300 plus and added a pair of scores on the ground, proving he will not go quietly into that good night. While I don't expect the latter again this week, he will certainly need to air it out to keep up with the Cardinals. The final player at 24 is Baker Mayfield on the road against the Bengals, and this is actually a sneaky good matchup as the Bengals have allowed the 9th most points per game to quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. In a big game for Mayfield and the Browns, he will do enough to warrant a start. Let's now move to our notable omissions before we get to our kickers. The first one is Justin Fields. He gets the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. Don't go chasing the points from last week. Pittsburgh defense is no joke, and they will be ready for Fields' legs here. The final player is Sam Darnold at home against the Patriots, and Bill Belichick cannot wait to dial up defenses to confuse New York Sam. Let's now get into the kickers for week 9. At number 1, we have Justin Tucker at home against Minnesota. He is the number 1 kicker, so he's going to have plenty of opportunities as Minnesota allows the 4th most points per game to the position. At number 2, it is Tyler Bass on the road against Jacksonville, and Buffalo is probably going to score about 1 million on the Jags. At 3, we have Matt Gay at home against Tennessee. There are consistent chances in this top 3 offense. We just hope for less touchdowns this week. At 4, it's Mason Crosby on the road against Kansas City. And rounding out our top 5, we have Matt Prater on the road against San Francisco. Arizona is going to get back on track this week. Greg the Leg is next at 6 against Denver at home. And at 7, we have Michael Bagley of the Colts against the Jets, who allow nearly 11 points a game to kickers. At 8, we have Daniel Carlson. He gets the Giants. And at 9, it is Nick Folk on the road against the Panthers, who bend but don't break, which means more kicking opportunities. Rounding out the top 10, it is Evan McPherson at home against Cleveland. Cincy's offense has been lights out, which means plenty of kicking chances for McPherson. At 11, we have Jason Sanders at home against Houston, and I expect a ton of points to be scored in this game. The last kicker before our notable omissions ends up being Randy Bullock on the road against the Rams. I think the Titans move the ball, but I doubt they get a lot of touchdowns. The 2 notable omissions I have for you guys this week are Young Ho Koo against New Orleans, and I just really fear Atlanta's offense without Ridley, and he's facing the Red Hot Saints defense, so I will pass. Finally, it's Greg Joseph against the Ravens on the road, and Minnesota's offense was an absolute travesty last week, so no thank you. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are new or haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe and help me on my road to 100 subscribers. If you have any start-sit questions, drop them down below or hit me up on the Sleeper app. I am available there as well. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Avery Mopats, and we'll see you next time.